My name is Amy Peck, and despite the fact that it says host producer up there, I'm actually the founder and CEO of Endeavor VR. And our company, we work primarily with Fortune 500 companies on leveraging this technology and really thinking about sort of an end-to-end strategy around deploying XR and what that means. And then to my right, I've got Lara Haves, who's the executive producer for VR at Sunny Boy Entertainment. And then we have Robert Watts, co-founder of Lightsail VR, and everybody's got great booths down on the expo floor. So tomorrow, highly recommend kind of seeing everybody. And then we have Ian Forrester, who's the CEO of VR Playhouse, and Ignacio Rodriguez, who is the CEO of AVR Studio. And I think I'm just going to hand it over and let Lara start and just let everyone kind of introduce themselves a little bit further.
Hi, like Amy said, I'm Lara from Sunny Boy Entertainment. Sunny Boy Entertainment is a VR content studio. We've been around for about 10 years, been creating VR content for about 4 years. We service brands as well as we have our own originals. We do a lot of work for the studios, for Warner Brothers, Paramount, actually not Paramount, Fox and Universal. Maybe Paramount's on the horizon. That's what I'm like bringing in. And usually creating VR experiences around their original IP. In terms of ROI, we use our VR a lot in marketing and bringing brand awareness. But we also have created, for the movie It, we did the second It experience that we did was an app that Warner Brothers is currently monetizing on and continues to bring in money for, I think it's a 99-cent app. And then we also have, and the big news for us is our first original VR game that launches this Tuesday on Steam. And you're all very lucky that it's downstairs here. It's Humble Pie, and it's the idea is that we're taking public figures that need to be humbled. And our first public figure lives in the Oval Office. We call it VR therapy. So if you have a need to get some angst out, there are pies downstairs, a plethora of them to throw at the Prez. So, and we're going to be monetizing that as well. It'll be 99 cents on Steam. So,
excellent. Robert.
I'm Robert Watts. I'm the co-founder and exec producer of Lightsail VR. We are a live-action and interactive immersive media production company. We specialize in we specialize in creative because our mantra is story first. We did the Paranormal Activity live-action 360 seance, which went viral, got over 10 million views between YouTube and Facebook. Went on to do a lot of commercial work for brands, agencies, and studios. We work for Google, GoPro, National Parks, Princess Cruises, companies like that. And really, we're entertainment focused, so we're doing a lot of B2C stuff as well. We just came out with a VR 180 show called Now Your Turn on Geek and Sundry. It was pretty popular, enjoyed that. And then we have Speak of the Devil, which is a live action interactive horror narrative. It's a choose your own adventure, all shot on the GoPro Odyssey. So it's live action assets inside a Unity shell. There's over 50 different locations to explore, 13 unique endings, 12 of which you die in. So it's a fun little piece that we have down at the booth. You should go check it out. And yeah, similar to all these fine folks up here.
Hey, everybody. Oh. Hello. Hi. I'm Ian Forrester. I'm the CEO and co-founder of VR Playhouse. We're a creative studio and full-service production company located in a 3,200 square foot studio in Glassell Park, near Highland Park. We founded in 2014 and have participated in a string of firsts since then. Oftentimes we tackle very technically complex work. We just gave a presentation a little bit earlier about the world's largest 360 stitch, which we accomplished for Mercedes for the new stadium down in Atlanta. It was a really crazy shoot. Aside from that, we do make some original content. We're mostly services driven. And those services, extend to companies in the entertainment space, to original creators who want, a VR Sherpa, and then lately more and more, and this is one of the things that I'll be telling some, sharing some tales from folks in the enterprise space. So people looking to leverage VR in their existing pipelines, whether it's sales, marketing, data gathering, market research, helping them deploy and leverage VR to, cut down on some of their costs.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Ignacio Rodriguez. I am the CEO and founder of AVR Studio. AVR Studio is an architectural virtual reality company. And what we do is we basically build virtual reality walkthroughs of properties so that end users or stakeholders can actually walk this space and have an opportunity to see what's actually going to get built before it gets built. And AVR Studio started out of the idea of trying to eliminate the amount of changes that take place during construction. And so the biggest issue that we had was, I think, finding a way to communicate a little clearer. Obviously, we do 3D models, 3D renderings, floor plans, but most of the time we kept finding that clients didn't quite grasp everything or every piece of that architecture. And so I also have an architecture firm. And so, with that, having that gap, virtual reality basically stepped in and allowed clients to really understand what they were going to get and make changes ahead of time before they become really, really expensive. So that's how AVR Studio started. That's what it does. And so for us, our ROI to the clients is basically they're able to save, if they do the VR experience, they're able to save between 5 and 10% of the construction cost, which is a tremendous amount of money.
That's great. And actually, so I'd love to start with you on this question because you're focused on a specific vertical. Are they then kind of going beyond the architectural phase and using it as a selling tool for some of their clients and then kind of realizing even more ROI around that as well?
Yeah, the first step was to just try to cut down on change orders just because that's easy, right? Getting in front of the design conflicts that you have within the drawings that you really can't see until you actually start building. And then from there, real estate agents that had properties that were extremely difficult to visualize, just because either they're a cliff or the site where the pad where the house is actually going is so remote that they couldn't see it. So we did 4 houses for Ben Bacal, and he sold all 4 of them in VR. So we've sold in virtual reality just over $12 million. Which was pretty cool. And so from that, we are currently have 2 houses with the agency, with Don Heller and Santiago, for $36 million. And so VR is now becoming a clear way to communicate to the end user, whoever's buying the product, so that they understand exactly what they're buying. And most importantly, right, they're gonna make changes, that's without a doubt, but they're at least able to understand what they're buying and then really get to the bottom of, can we actually make those changes? So it's allowing them to kind of hedge their bets, and especially when you have $36 million on the line, and really understand it. So it's been working out pretty well.
And so for the rest of you, Lara, you started a little bit, and I would like to come back and ask you some more specific questions. But Ian, you're working, and Robert, both of you, your companies, kind of cross-vertical, and you have a lot of different experiences. What are some of the ones that you find are the best opportunities as far as ROI that you've seen with the work, specific work that you've done?
Anytime there's an expensive personal interaction that drives value for a business, those are our targets. When we're talking to, when we're doing our innovation strategy consulting and talking to companies, we'll do in the discovery phase, we'll sort of draw big circles around, okay, here's an expensive personal day and date dependent, place dependent interaction where we can, use immersive technology to either fully replicate that experience and make it something that somebody can do from their office, or a potential hiring candidate can do from, a recruitment center or something like that. If we can sort of collapse those things down to make it on demand and remote access, then there's 100% going to be savings there. And identifying that, and then identifying that number, that savings number, that's what gets people really excited. I'll just to sort of finish up, like it's kind of tough. A lot of enterprise clients and companies that we talk to, they're very risk averse, and so they're very averse to change. And it's not like what's been so interesting is that the technology doesn't sell anything. It's the use case for the technology, and it's really that percentage. Oh, I'll save you 40% on this interaction. We'll be able to cut this line of your project budget or of your onboarding budget, in half. And then they start paying attention, and they're like, oh, but that's magic. How do you do that? And I'm like, well, this magic device, here's the magic. You don't need to worry about that. I have that part. Like, all you need to know is that 50%, and here's how it's going to play out.
You are the man behind the curtain. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Right. And Robert, how about you?
So the majority of our clients are agencies and studios, so they're looking for views. So for them, the ROI is making sure that it's similar to traditional 2D commercial work, and that how could you deliver views right now? Because there's no consumer marketplace, in a big way at least, for VR content, because consumers right now aren't paying for VR content unless it's gaming. And so there's nothing to monetize. So specifically, we make our money because there's a unique way to get engagement by being in VR. So, come to us, we'll do a unique experience that has a higher level of retention because you've been experiencing it in a VR headset, or because you're interacting with it in some way where it's a 360 video or some sort of UI. And that's why it makes more sense for advertisers to spend money that way.
And Laura, so you talked a little bit about some of the ways that you're monetizing, but how does that translate into the ROI? Like, what are the kind of metrics around how you look at the ROI?
Yeah, the metrics is the hard part. Yeah, that's the challenge right there. I think the one thing that I just want to kind of put out there is ROI, to really talk about ROI, part of it is monetization, right? So we're talking about actually money in the pocket. We're also talking about eyeballs. We're talking about building awareness around brands, so that's also ROI. And then we're also talking about just loyalty, brand loyalty. So particularly around IP, large IPs, building up a loyalty for your fans to provide additional experiences, say between film releases or other things like that. So I just want to kind of open up the idea of what ROI is, like how do we get that back? Now, how do we measure that is really the tricky part, particularly when you're talking about marketing awareness. We did a 2-part VR series on it. One that came out in the marketing window, one that came out in the home entertainment window. In the marketing window, it was purely, in the theatrical window, it was purely marketing. In the home entertainment window, it was monetizable. Whether or not the marketing theatrical window brought actual people butts in seats. That's a metric we don't necessarily have, but it was definitely brought awareness. We got a lot of publicity. They had a bus that went around the country. It was at Comic-Con. People were waiting in line forever. We had it online. People could experience it in a 360 environment. We got a lot of views. We had a lot of additional social media hits with it. So that was really where we see the ROI, but the metrics, at least, if Warner Brothers has them, I don't have them. Yes.
There's also I want to jump in because I remember this activation, and there was a third layer of ROI that I think is important to point out, and that's all of the social media that was posted from your activation site.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And this is a layer, with the VR experience, it needs to exist in at least 3 layers. There's the layer of the content, which is what, we've all spent countless words on. But there's also this layer of sculpture and this layer of spectation, and that layer of spectation is the person in the headset, are they occupying high status in the room? And, do we aspire to be in the headset as they are in the headset? I think there are a lot of ways that you can construct the social space in order to, drive value there. And then, this layer of sculpture, is this a place where people want to be seen, and where people want to take a picture? And I think Sonny Boy did a really incredible job of doing that for the IT activation. And it drove a lot of social media as far as I know.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is another piece of it. It's that we build immersive experiences, and so we want to be able to build immersive experiences that bring people in and connect with the content itself, right? And when they connect with the content, that's when they're going to walk away and they're going to want to post the pictures and the things like that. So we want that engagement, and I think it goes back to something that you said that your company is all about, which is story first. We consider ourselves storytellers. Our first and foremost when we're doing marketing stuff or whether it's like monetizable, it's story first as well. But we see ourselves as filmmakers and storytellers, and that's where you engage and that's where you connect and you bring a connection with that audience because that's ROI right there. Is just that connection. Yeah.
I think VR gives you a huge level of engagement that you don't get normally because when you're scrolling through Facebook, you'll see a video pop up and you'll scroll for a second or two before you move on. But once you get someone in a headset, you've captivated them. You've taken away their senses, you've taken away their sight and sound. I think there's a study done that people shown a 360 photo, not video, spent 17 seconds just looking around. So 17 seconds at a photo versus 2 seconds at a video that could be something more interesting. It's hard to define like what that ROI means to that brand that supported that or that that paid advertising that was inside of that experience.
Well, and let's save the bigger question for later is that do we have to start, redefining how we think about ROI? But I want to go back because both of you touched on, there's a consumer component of this, right? Eyeballs, engagement, but enterprise looks for math. They want some hard numbers. Most of my clients won't release those numbers, so I might know some of them, and their internal teams will know someone, but even when we're working with their data, we have to do it on-prem. So it's very secretive. Thankfully, Bosch actually did release some figures last year around their AR warehouse tools, 15 to 30% increase in productivity or decrease in time to complete a task. Those are huge. Where are you seeing this?
I know the one metric that comes to mind right now is the travel agency in London. They were selling a helicopter package. If anybody knows the name of it, just jump in. They were selling a helicopter tour in New York City via helicopter, selling this in their office in London. They did a VR, it was a 360 video experience of it, and activated it at their flagship store and saw 190% increase in bookings. And I think that I bring up that example because first of all, 190% of anything, increase in anything, if you're talking about money coming in, you're gonna be very, very happy. And I also mention it because, that I think to me crystallizes the real value of virtual reality, and you can sort of take this same mechanism and just apply it over and over again like a hammer. You have this thing, helicopter tour of New York City. If you're a Londoner about to go on holiday, imagine that, think about that. That's a very abstract idea, and it's sort of tough to go right from I'm a Londoner about to go on holiday to C, I'm in New York in a helicopter. I don't know, is that gonna be fun? Do I really wanna put down, whatever it is to like 1,000 pounds or, 500 pounds or whatever, I don't know what it costs, something outrageous, let's assume. And so I need that B step, and that's what virtual reality can really provide. I remember when I first started this, people were saying, potential clients, I'd be like, hey, you have this really great experience. We should make a VR of it. And they'd be like, oh no, but then nobody's going to want to actually do the experience. and they just didn't realize how crappy VR was at the time, and like and how it'll never replace the real experience, but it can give you enough of a window into it to decide whether or not you're going to like it and be satisfied. And because it works as like a memory creation device, you're actually more likely to enjoy it than if you hadn't done the virtual reality in the first place, because by the time you actually get your body in that situation, it feels somewhat familiar. So your fight or flight mechanism is disabled. You're no longer sitting there asking yourself that question, am I having fun? Am I having fun? You're like, oh, I expect this to be pleasant, so therefore it is pleasant, and I can relax and enjoy myself.
For me, the VR component, I started AVR Studio about 2.5 years ago. But it was an additive that I created to my architecture business. And so I did it out of I thought it was cool and let's see what happens. But what it actually did is it gave me a massive leverage tool in the market, because most architects they just weren't engaging with VR. So I had an opportunity to bring in a lot of clients who were looking for another way of communicating, and obviously I had the VR in-house. And so in doing so, the VR actually jumped my architecture business, probably doubled it, which was huge for me, just on the architecture side. But then it also then created a revenue stream for the VR company. And so, it's interesting. I took this leap on the VR side to just something that I thought was cool. I'm sure all you guys have tried the Oculus. When you go in, you see this lobby, right? You're in this super cool lobby. And about 3 years ago or so, I was sitting there. I was like, wow, this lobby looks pretty cool. My house would look pretty cool in this context. And so that was literally how it started. And so I used VR as a way of kind of creating my brand for the architecture business, super unique. And then when we started it, I was giving it away, but it didn't matter because I was getting the money on the architecture end. And then eventually, as I built my library, as I built my assets, then I started charging for the VR, but I had already created all the content that I needed. I had implemented all the systems that we needed to implement, so that then now that we sell the VR to everybody, the R&D phase is a lot smaller than it was when we first started. If I would have been trying to sell the VR when I started, I would have had to charge an extraordinarily large amount of money just to break even. So that's how I use the VR, and I tied it with the architecture to kind of have an ROI just on my side personally.
Yeah, you touched on something that's really, really an important piece here that I think a lot of companies miss, and it's how we work with companies in thinking of an overarching strategy. Because we're listening, as you're listening here, this technology touches multiple business lines within a particular company or enterprise. And what you've just said is part of it. It's building this asset library that you can move from one business line to another. And I know that both of you, actually all of you, have so many different clients. Are you finding that you're building, one particular experience for them, but they're able then to utilize those 3D assets for other business lines?
I think for a brand, what's going to have the highest ROI is going to be training. Because when you can train people in VR, it's consistent and it's well done, and you don't have to fly anyone anywhere and get all the parts together. It's all right there in front of you. There's a study that the VR Strategy Conference had where they gave people CPR tests, and they gave them a paper kind of standard CPR test, and they gave them a VR CPR test. And they checked in with them something like 6 months later, and they found that 90% of the people who did the paper test had forgotten it, and 90% of people who did the VR one had remembered it. So it just shows you right there that you can keep it consistent, you can streamline it, and you can do it once, and you don't have to send trainers out around the country showing people high-end work that costs lots of money. So if you ask me what the biggest ROI for a Fortune 500 company, I would say training would be it in VR.
Well, and I want to piggyback onto that and just say that on top of training, because of the metrics and the insights that we're getting, were you going to pick up on this?
You get direct metrics that way.
Yeah. And then I'm sure you were going to make this
It's a conversation.
same point, which is you're able to weed out those candidates. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have one of the hardest things about running a company is you don't know what you get until you've already hired the person and they're already on your payroll, and then you have to, like, if it doesn't work out, you have to fire them, and like, not only is that like awkward, but it opens you up to liability, and you have to, if they've, you have to, there's all this stuff you have to do, right? And then you're just spinning your wheels, and then you're right back to where you started. So if you can ensure that you're getting good hires from the start by looking at it as an interview tool.
Or like putting them through like a training session before you even hire them.
Yeah, and seeing
idea.
and seeing what their instinctive response is to high pressure situations. I mean, particularly in life or death roles, and in roles where people are being depended on for so that hundreds of other people can actually live and thrive. Like that's a huge value add.
And you can reuse those same assets over and over. I mean, obviously you would change it out for like whatever the particular skill is. So, but you could reuse the opening and the ending assets. So we find that we're starting to get more and more training related projects for brands, which works great. Anything that's location based or skill based, where you're having to use the touch controllers or using the HTC Vive controllers, it's a perfect use case for VR.
And so let's go back again to the more that consumer facing experience, because again, I think the ROI there can sometimes be more nebulous as far as getting hard numbers, right? If there's no call to action in the experience that you can measure, how do you measure it? And Lara, you talked a little bit about, there's so many different ways to define ROI, but are your clients defining it in the same way? And, you can have this conversation with them, but they'll say, no, we need some hard numbers. And are you coming up against that? And how do you argue that?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I think, one of the things that we've had a lot of clients who are get super excited about the idea of VR, right? And then at the back end, don't really necessarily know, first of all, how to distribute it and what they want to see happen with it. So what we're learning is also to walk through that more strategic level of things with people from an early stage, like what is the end goal? What do we want to accomplish with this? And creating it so that we're all on the same page, and then that they know how to market and distribute it too, because there's been times we've created stuff where then we give it to them and they don't know how to market and distribute it. And it doesn't get useful. And then they're like, oh, that was a waste of our money. And I was like, well, we have to, so we're kind of hand-holding a little bit in that space to just try to help, get it out in a better way in that way. But yeah.
When they have a bad first experience, they blame the VR. They don't blame the content creator, So I keep trying to educate people, like VR is a delivery mechanism. It's like saying, I'm going to go do something on DVD. It's like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to do, a training thing? Are you going to do an entertainment thing? Are you going to do, a gaming thing? So it's really it's an educational process with the clients as you do it. We had the same thing. We had a client who did a video with us, and they put it on their company YouTube page that has, 500 subscribers. And they're like, how come it's not going viral? We're like, well, because you put it on YouTube with no paid advertising behind it. You didn't put it on something that's popular.
It costs that much money, and that's all we get. It's like, well, there's a bigger thing here, this industry, and which brings up the point with we're just kind of just to say where we're at in the industry, where it's a chicken and egg situation right now. We need, the audience is starting to develop it. Oculus Go, fabulous, great week for all of us. The more the people that have it, the more that people consume it. But they're going to start consuming it, but we also need good content there. So then we need good content, and we need money streaming into the content creators so that we can create good content so that people don't get in those headsets and be like, this is lame, So there's a chicken and an egg thing, but I just want to keep saying that because content needs to be created, and there needs to be money streaming towards creating good, solid storytelling and engaging content in the entertainment space, but as well as in the training space too. I think the other places we can tell stories in the training space. That's why it's so valuable to do those trainings, because we can create an experience that is just like the living story experience that people have in training.
You remember it.
And you remember it.
You remember it better.
There's another thing that I've been talking to companies some from the branding and advertising side that are coming to us and that we're talking to, where they come to us looking for a piece of marketing, and I tell them, I said, it's not just marketing, it's also market research, and it's because of this data layer, and this is something that we're not 100% talking about because we're still not quite sure what we're measuring. But there are really, we have relationships with a number of companies that are working in this data space, and it gets tricky because you have things like GDPR and you have like the backlash, the Facebook backlash that's happening right now, and you're measuring behavioral metrics, targeting it against a timeline, a content timeline, and these metrics are subconscious behaviors, things like head movement, and you're able to get these like really remarkable insights, and then how do you leverage those insights? But just like one thing that's definitely true is that in the future, and by the future I mean now, like we're in the future, data is the new gold. And so if you're a company and you don't have, you're just sort of putting stuff out on YouTube, or you're just kind of putting stuff out there. Television commercials are the worst, right? Because you get like Nielsen data back, which is you might as well take your data, wash it twice, throw it in the dryer, and then it's like rice it through. It's like mashed potatoes by the time you get it. How are you going to pull any insights from that? But YouTube and addressable ad data is far better, but I think VR and behavioral data, direct behavioral data, that's an even another level. And this kind of data is going to be used to drive deep learning models, drive AI tools in the future. This is one of the reasons why like Facebook and Google are so freaking scary right now, because they have all the data. They can make whatever AI they want. It's the power of AI is in the data that you're looking backward on. So any company that wants to have a foothold in the AI revolution that's coming is like, they should start building their own data library. And the kind of behavioral data that we're getting from VR is pretty tasty, even if we don't know what to do with it yet.
Yeah, on my side, it's just VR gives you an opportunity, at least for the architecture side, to gain experience, leaps and bounds, and like skip years and years of experience without having to build. Because the art of building, it takes many years to build a house. Could take 2.5 years, depending how big it is, 3 years. So, but I was at the Woodbury Reviews for first year on Tuesday, and what was astonishing was to see how advanced their work was for first year. I think their work was probably as good as my thesis project when I graduated. And what it is they just have access to so much information now. And so with VR, what's going to start happening is they're going to come out of school with actual experience of like proportions, scale, understanding corridors, proper training to understand, how to size egress, and you're starting to see all of that, and they're coding it. There's different coding that takes place in design with different algorithms, Grasshopper, so forth and so on, for design tools, and that's eventually going to get integrated into this architecture realm. And what's going to happen is people are just going to have experience, because that experience already exists. The problem is before you kind of have to, they always said a successful architect was 50 years old, right? Because by that time you would have done so many mistakes. You would have made so many mistakes that now you're actually, you got some real experience behind you. And I was talking to you guys, we've built 250,000 square feet in virtual reality. And in doing so, we learned a lot. In just understanding different mistakes that architects make and designers make, that you look at the plans and they look fine, but you walk it and it's obvious, like, oh, I would have never put that there. I would have never done that. And so that's the other side of this data that's kind of trickling down to the younger generations. and they're going to come out. And so I say that to all the architects, the older architects who refuse to embrace the technology is, you better embrace it, because these young kids are going to come out and they're going to kick all of our butts. They're going to be so technology advanced that, we're sitting here sketching a kitchen. They're going to literally model it, and you can walk through their concept. And it's hard to compete when the technology is moving that fast on my side.
So I'm going to ask you guys one more question on this kind of data tip, because I think it's important, but then we want to throw it out to you guys for some questions. But to make everybody's life easy, if you have a question, if you can kind of come forward here so that we can just have one mic, and so think of some good ones, because we've got a pretty stellar panel here. So I want to go back to that this data conversation, because we are collecting biometric data. And one of the challenges is, how do we wire that into kind of traditional data analytics for productivity metrics on a warehouse floor, for example, because they're, apples and oranges in some ways. And then, of course, it's biometric data. So we're crosses over into health data. If we're doing eye tracking, there is data that we can actually pull from eye tracking data that crosses over into medical data. Where is that line? And then we don't want to get into this huge philosophical discussion. Are any of your clients thinking about how to leverage the data with their existing metrics so that it makes sense in the business context?
Well, we're really using it from a creative standpoint. So if I can tell where you're looking, I can influence the story and use AI to change your narrative. So maybe I find that as you're watching, you find Ian more interesting or Ignacio more interesting, so that the next scene will follow one of them or the other one of them, and you can do a branch narrative between their storylines and jump back at any point. So we're not using it so much from a monetization standpoint, but more what you can do with the technology. And it's kind of a fascinating place to play in, especially when you add AI to it, because then you can have AI bots who are talking back to you and interacting your story. And as you listen to what people are saying, change the story based on that as well. So as we get all this biometric data, we can use it for a positive way. And obviously we would ask your permission before we do it. That's how the privacy thing goes. We have a standard privacy waiver, and then you sign up, and then you say, okay, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with Facebook knowing my data, so I think I'd be okay with a VR game, playing off my personality and where my eyes are going to make it more interesting for me.
So we work with third-party data companies who meet a privacy standard of at minimum GDPR. We prefer a privacy standard that reaches the level that the European community uses for medical records, because it is biometric data. We are gathering information about people's bodies, and I believe that the only way to do it ethically is to meet the highest the highest standards out there. That said, so the type of data that we have access to through traditional online platforms can largely be classified as quantitative data. There's another type of data, qualitative data, that is incredibly expensive to procure. Before online platforms, quantitative data was pretty expensive to procure, but YouTube fixed that for us, right? Virtual reality will do the same thing for qualitative data, and the same correlations that that are drawn between traditional qualitative and quantitative data can be drawn, more easily with this new sort of information gathering tool. That said, I think it's important to say that we need radical revision of how we treat individual users at this point. And I think we should all be very conscious of, our digital human rights and how they don't really exist right now. And we need to, demand them and insist upon them, because so long as your individual device ID is tied to your downloads, that's like a lot of information that can then be triangulated about you, the individual user. What I would prefer to see happen is, at least for the time being, we have, okay, user X, user 1379, and we can still tell data about individual users, but that data is disambiguated from that user's identity and the other identifying factors about them, so that you can't show up at my house because you found my device ID, my name, and you can sort of send me a mailer about this thing that I looked at in the virtual reality experience. Like, that's not okay. It really needs to be treated with a much higher degree of seriousness than is currently out there, particularly in the U.S.
Could do an entire new panel on this whole piece of it. So stay tuned. Next year we'll be back with more on data. So does anyone have any questions? For the okay. Do we have a mic available for this gentleman? Oh, there we go.
Hello, hi. So my question is related a little less about return on investment and more about investment. I'm coming from a company called Making 360. We've been producing VR for about 2 and something years. And about 6 months ago, we shifted to write original content, narrative story, choose your own adventure. We have all of those magnificent decks, and now we want to reach out to the world. So if you can give me a little tip about where to go, what investors will be good for that, your insights about finding investments.
Your guess is as good as mine. I've never taken a dime of investor money, but if anybody wants to give it to me, I'll be standing in the back of the room, and I'd love to chat.
So and they take blockchain as well. So any cryptocurrency
we had a lot of those.
Do you have available? ICO.
So I would, a lot of people when they're doing this new medium of VR are throwing out the baby with the bathwater, to use a old expression, where they've forgotten the last 100 years of film and television. It's the same model as packaging in 2D. You got to find the right buyers, you got to find who they're interested in and who they're marketing to. It's right now the studios and the networks aren't in VR yet in a big way. Yeah. They're kind of dabbling, but we've got a new group of 5. We've got Google, HTC, Oculus, Samsung, PlayStation, Sony, who are they're headset makers. So clearly they want to get people into VR, and the way you do that is by having kick-ass content. There's no Game of Thrones level experience in VR where people are talking about it at the water cooler the next day saying, hey, did you try that new Game of Thrones thing or whatever it is, that new thing? You got to go buy a headset. You got to go check it out. We don't have that. So the way to get money is to package, is to come up with a creative that fits and then target someone that's like, hey, this is going to work really well on HTC. It's a room scale experience. It's got this narrative, and it's targeting males 18 to 35, and it's an action piece. It's the next Space Pirate Trainer. So packaging is my answer.
On my side, you need to find strategic partners that actually. And I mean by partners, not partners obviously that have money, that would be awesome, but partners that have a lot of business experience, that have been around the block, that have a lot of connections, that you can bring on board to open doors for you, right? If your product's amazing, it'll sell itself. A lot of times all you just need is that introduction. So on my side, I have a strategic business partner who brought 50 years of experience. He's built about 90 companies. And so by doing so, he's got a Rolodex of a whole variety of people that he's worked with. He's got a lot of experience. A lot of times old school works. I just don't know old school because I'm not that old. But my partner has all these amazing insights he sold women's shoes at some point in Texas, and he made a killing doing it, and he learned a lot from it. And so a lot of times it's just finding a good strategic partner that can come on to your idea or your concept or your company and help facilitate that conversation for you, basically, so that they get you in the room with the right people.
And you need to know it's sort of the investment 101, right? You're going to have to be able to articulate, what is the ROI for your product to your prospective clients, identify those prospective clients, frankly, if you can not take in a penny and work directly with clients on POCs, maybe at a reduced rate, and bootstrap, that is always the best way, I believe, except for any investors who are out there who are annoyed with me right now. I think they would agree too. Yeah. So, but you have to be very, very clear. It's not good enough to build a good product. And the reason everybody here, and their companies are so successful is because they have a very specific vision and they are delivering for their clients. And if you do that, you're going to have a successful company.
Cool. Thank you.
Just one more thing I just wanted to add is, right now the VR groups, the companies in the space are very collaborative. It's not like traditional film and television where it's very cutthroat yet. We're all colleagues. I look at everyone here as my peers rather than my competitors. And so if you've got a great idea, come down and chat with some of us at the booth and be like, hey, I want to make this happen. I don't know how to make it. I need X, Y, or Z. Maybe some of us can fill in parts of that package that are missing. So the production company, the talent, the distributor, it all comes down to what's the creative and why is it cool to do in VR. And if you can sell us, then we're going to help you try and sell it.
I also want to just because I gave you kind of a glib answer, but I can tell you the advice that I've been given is, anything that is a subscription model is investable. There's actually a company, Lighter Capital, that if you have a subscription model that's doing I think more than $15,000 a month, they'll give you repeatable loans, against that. I don't know anything more than that, and this is not financial advice. I just want to put that out there. The other thing is that if you can demonstrate traction, within an existing audience, and Kickstarter is a really great way to do that. It's a lot better for products. Content can be kind of tough. Content's tough, man. It's really tough. That's why I don't have investors. Not because I've been no, get away from me with your millions of dollars. It's because I run a content company, and everybody looks at me and says, "Oh, you run a content company. That's great. Awesome. So glad to meet you. You make cool stuff. I'm not giving you a penny." And they're right. That's the thing. I shouldn't say that on stage.
That was still a glib answer, but it's true.
but it is, just kind of being real. So I don't know. How do you make it subscribable? How do you offer, how do you offer hard value from this content? These are
like
things.
film financing, basically.
It's tough. Add a little bit to what you said. So making 360 is collaborative. It's collaborative with creators and basically pitching together and hiring one another and working on great. And now we want to make that step. As you said, the actors have content that we have awesome ideas. So we wrapped it up, and now it's the time to approach, and we feel that it's somewhat flat because it is content stuff. But the chicken and egg needs to be solved. It's a grand prize down the line that you may lose the outlays, but in the meantime,
Yeah, and we're all feeling it, so yeah. And the only other thing I want to add, just as another suggestion, is I'm not sure what your content is, but if it works with a particular brand, and it's go approach a brand and say, we've got this great content. They're looking for content too in this space, so there could be a brand partnership as well. Yeah,
good. And like you're doing, tell everyone you know. This, you've done it here. So, anyone else? Questions?
Hi, Chris, motion analysis. Question for you. So for me in my divisions, I have to be profitable or not profitable. And ROI is my cost to my expenses. So, and I think Ignacio, you let us know how it's become profitable for him and how it's actually producing income to keep the company running, and it's a real positive. Is anybody else making money at this?
I have a question. Are you evaluated on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis?
Annually, yeah. We actually closed our entertainment division because we were making so much money in other areas. So we've only reopened it, And I'm just curious, in the VR area, it sounds like most people are not making a profit yet, and I just want to be able to pay my employees.
I think that there's, I have it's a rare moment. I have a client, it's a forklift manufacturer, and they built a sim and training module for their forklifts, but they productized it. So they sell it through their dealership, and it's not meant to replace their traditional training, but they already had a training product. So now this kind of sits in between classroom and practical training. And so they're starting to make money. The product was launched actually at CES this year. So there's, they don't have a ton of metrics around it. And they aren't, sharing any specific figures, but they are selling it. And not only are they making money from the product, but then their clients, it's a huge value add for their clients because they've also done it in a way where they actually use the forklifts themselves instead of a very expensive buck.
Right. I think I'm asking you if your division is making money, not your clients.
Well, I don't know about all of you guys, but I have a small company. We're less than 10 people. Yeah, we're making money.
Perfect.
But yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this. But the difference is that, and what's interesting about this community, and even hearing you talk and everybody here, is that we love this technology. Like, we love it and we care about it. And so, no matter where we are on that kind of economic spectrum, we know the money's going to come. We need to put good content out there. We need to do a better job. I'm getting on a soapbox here for 1 second, but this is true. We need to do a better job of engaging the consumer. And we're getting there. The hardware is coming. We have good mobile experiences. Qualcomm is going deep with, their processors. But we're not doing a great job of really engaging the consumer to the degree where they're going home and saying, I need this stuff. Or Apple, Google Pixel, turn on the AR more, we want more AR experiences. They're not doing that yet. So that, I think, collectively is something we're working on. And when we do it, we're going to have our hockey stick moment. But in the meantime, passion and ramen drive us.
Right. Our corporate parent kept us alive for 3 years in hoping that it would all happen, but it was too early. So that's why I'm just curious,
Yeah.
Does you got something behind you to keep you going whether you turn a profit or not, or do you turn a profit? ROI.
Okay.
Every project's different, and I also think that as an industry, we're getting better at learning practical workflows and ways to ensure that there is profit. But we haven't hit the hockey stick moment for sure.
We'll get there.
I can say for our part, the last year has been brutal. I mean, before that it was a lot, it was a lot easier, but I think that what the effect it's had has been largely positive, and I do look to particularly Q3 this year and start to see some light at the end of the tunnel with the new devices coming out. I think a lot of the frustration about I think we can all recognize that we've hit early adopter saturation, and that there is nobody out there who would buy VR if only they knew it existed, right? Everybody who's going to buy it in that first wave has bought it, and now they're all waiting for the next generation of hardware. And so we're all waiting for the next generation of hardware. We need the cords to go away. We need 6DoF to be in a mobile format. The good news is that this is all, we need an all-in-one device that's not the Gear VR, because that thing does not work as a consumer device. And the good news is that that's all happening. We have Oculus Go launching last week.
Yep.
We have Vive Focus. Even Vive Pro with the AR pass-through cameras. There is a new generation of hardware that's coming out that I think will drive the early mass adoption that we've all been waiting for. But yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle, and we've been waiting it out, and had to make some really hard choices, and no, there's nobody in the. It's right here. It stops right here. So.
think we have time for one more.
Actually, on that note, how do you balance content creation with how fast all of that technology is advancing, and the time that you have to sink in to learn a new set of tools or a new camera, or say you're moving from 360 video to a Unity engine, and balancing that with actually pitching to partners and saying, hey, we've never tried this, but wouldn't this be cool?
We've done all of those in the last year. We don't buy cameras because the cameras change so rapidly. We just rent what we need for the job or build what we need for the job. You're going to always have to learn new tools, and you have to learn new programs. And we spend a lot of time in R&D and thinking about the future, about what are people going to want in 6 months, what are people going to want in 2 years when the technology comes, to that hockey stick moment. Like is 360 video quote unquote dead? Should we be doing more interactive 360 video? Is that the future of how things are going? Should we be doing more in-engine content? So Speak of the Devil was born out of that because it's a hybrid of 360 video and Unity assets now. So it's always about future thinking.
And I'll say, we're definitely building time for R&D into our budgets, making sure that that's part of what we're doing, and in our company budgets and our client budgets, and then also just to say that's the fun part. That's the fun part. We get to constantly be thinking about how we tell stories in different ways with the new tools, and there's new stuff out there all the time, and that's what makes this such an amazing industry to be part of.
That's, let's see how we're doing. I know everyone wants to go home. All right, 6:31. I got to pull the plug. I'm making an executive decision.
Come see us afterwards.
Now tomorrow, so we'll be here for a little bit, and I really do encourage you, if you haven't been on the floor and seen all of their experiences, go and say hi to them tomorrow. They're all doing cool things. I did stop before I got murdered, but you don't have to. Go for it. Be brave.
Come by the president.
Oh, God, I'm totally doing that tomorrow. I missed that today. Thank you all for joining us and sticking with us till the bitter end.
Thank you.